paper currency keeps crashing, then you can't own anything that's currency related. You can't own a currency derivative. You need to own something that politicians can't print more of.
The purpose of central banks like the Fed is to protect the banks, not you. They're a criminal operation as far as I'm concerned.
If you're trying to use money that requires banks, you can't trust the banks, right? You certainly can't trust the banks in Africa, in South America, and most of Asia. It used to be Americans thought they could trust American banks. Now they're realizing that they can't trust American banks. So the first order impact of the banking crisis is people think, well, maybe the money I had in the bank's going away, and so I ought to put it in a bank in cyberspace that isn't controlled by the government or by the bankers, and that's Bitcoin. The second order impact is the solution to the banking crisis is print more dollars. And if you print more dollars, the actual monetary inflation rate goes 10%, 15%, 20%. So you think, why do you think those bonds crashed? Because they're actually claims on dollars. Do you really want to hold $1 billion of Zimbabwe dollars? What if I offered you 10 billion Zimbabwe dollars? I mean, the answer is it's going to a nickel. Okay, so if the paper currency keeps crashing, then you can't own anything that's currency related. You can't own a currency derivative. You need to own something that politicians can't print more of. So it's simple. If people lose faith in the banks, they lose faith in the currency. When they lose faith in the currency, they lose faith in the government. When you lose faith in the bank, the currency, and the government, and someone says, what can you trust? The answer is you can trust Bitcoin because you can custody your own asset, you can run your own node. And at the end of the day, even if the Chinese want to shut it down, they can't. If the Russians want to shut it down, they can't. If any nation state wants to shut it down, they can't. If the US wanted to shut it down, they can't. And so everybody wants something that they can trust that is beyond the reach of a corrupt politician, a corrupt corporate executive, or they don't have to be corrupt. They can just be well-meaning, trying to do the right thing in a misguided fashion and meddling with your economic life. Let me give you the world's worst money. The worst money in the world is like Argentine pesos or Venezuelan bolivars or Zimbabwe dollars or Nigerian naira. Weak money. The official inflation rate in Argentina is 105%. But that's the official rate, which is that understates it. The actual inflation rate would be higher. And if the inflation rate is running 100%, that means your money is losing half of its value every 12 months. That means that within 10 years, you have nothing. Okay, so bad money, bad currency or bad money loses all of its value over the course of a few years. In Venezuela, you lose all your value in 36 months. In Argentina, in 10 to 20 years, the Argentine peso was 1 to the dollar 21 years ago. If you had $1 million 21 years ago, the Argentine peso right now is about 480 to the dollar. So that's not a 99% loss. That's a 99.8% loss. Okay, so what I'm saying is you don't have money if you have weak currency. Now let's take strong currency. Well, the strongest currency in the world is the dollar. That's not money. You're losing 99% of your wealth over the course of 90 years in the US dollar. Maybe more. The US dollar, the only difference between the US dollar and the peso is whereas it takes 20 years to lose your family's fortune in the peso, it takes about 90 years to lose your family's fortune in the dollar, right? My house in Miami Beach was $100,000 in 1930. It was appraised at $46 million a few years ago. Do the calculation. It's on a path to be worth $100 million, which means that the US dollar will have lost 99.9% of its value over 100 years. Warren Buffett knows this. Charlie Munger knows this. Basically, the bottom line there is your money in the bank isn't money. Okay, so the answer is you shouldn't have any money in a bank, right? You're basically losing 7% of all your wealth every year in a good year. If it's the dollar, you're losing 15% of your wealth in a not good year. If it's the dollar, you're absolutely losing all your money over the course of a decade. So that's kind of weak money. Awful money is developing world money, the Lebanese pound. The Lebanese pound got devalued. I mean, you would have lost all your money in 5 years if you had the pound. The strongest money in the world is Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is absolutely capped at 21 million. It is global money. You could take $1 billion of Bitcoin across a border. You can transfer it to a counterparty, and no government can interdict that, and nobody can inflate that. And so my answer there would be, you can't trust any bank. You certainly can't trust a bank in Lebanon. Read about Lebanese banks. You can't trust a bank in Africa. You can't trust a bank in Asia. Let's think about what banking executives in the U.S. do. The U.S. banking system is the best in the world. Here's what they do. You put $100 billion into the bank. They have the deposits. They turn around. The Federal Reserve interest rate, short-term rate, was 0. And these guys went and invested $100 billion of those deposits in mid-dated, long-dated sovereign debt that was yielding 1.8% interest. Would you loan me money for 30 years at 3% interest rate? Like, can you imagine that? If the inflation rate was 8 or 10%, would you loan money out at 3% interest rate for the rest of your life? If I was your money manager, and if you had given me all your money when interest rates were 0, and I said, well, I guess interest rates will stay 0 for the next 30 years, and so I'm going to loan it out as a bond and lock in a price of 2%, you would have thought I was crazy. No, there is no individual, no corporation, no rational corporation, no economic actor that would loan money forever for 3% interest when inflation is running double or triple that. So the question is, who would? And the answer is a bureaucrat, either a governmental bureaucrat, someone that is coerced by regulatory policy where they're forced to. For example, a bank can't buy Bitcoin, but a bank is almost obligated to buy treasuries, right? So the politicians create a set of rules that strongly encourage you to do certain things and strongly discourage you to do other things. And generally, they encourage you to do the thing which is probably least economically viable. There are probably local organizations and banks in foreign countries that own their own local currency, right? Like, would you buy, an African currency with an inflation rate of 200% a year? No, but people do. Why? Because the government controls or owns the entity, and so they force that.
And your generation, the millennials, have been screwed. I mean, big time. Big time. I mean, if you understand how money is created, money is credit and debt. That's all it is. I mean, credit, debt, and taxes. That's what money really is. But they don't teach you that in school. So today, the reason the world economy is crashing goes all the way back to 71. But what happened in 71, they could just make fake money, and they can keep printing fake money. And this is the US dollar. The US can keep printing fake money for a number of years yet. The monetary system has been blown apart so bad that a foreign government, comes in and they're going to start giving us more fake money called SDRs, special drawing rights. I don't know what they are, but they can print and give us more fake money. So that's the future. So that's why I said, won't free money destroy the USA? The answer is yes, destroy the whole world. So what should I do? I always say, gold, silver, God's money, Bitcoin, people's money. You want to get outside this corrupt system. Bitcoin is open source. That means the central banks can't mess with it. Gold and silver are God's money. They can try, but they can't make any more of it.
Any amount of money you want to keep the rest of your life, if you want to give it to your kids, if you want to actually retire on it, anything that's investable asset, you would put it in Bitcoin. You would put it in the strongest possible world currency, the global money, and that's Bitcoin. You're not going to get rich investing in dollars. You'll lose all your money if your dollars are in a weak bank, and if your dollars in a strong bank, you'll just get poor slowly. You're going to get poor rapidly if your money is in not the dollar, but a weaker currency, and you're going to get completely bankrupt if you trust a weak bank.
The reason I call it God's money is you can't fake it. You know, you can fake it with a fake ETF, like a gold ETF or a silver, which I don't touch because it smells as bad as the guys that printed that crap. You know what I mean? Jesus. This is real money. So I would recommend you guys buy this stuff. When I first started buying that was $1.40. Today, that's $16. And this here is water, gold. Why did I say it's God's money? Because he was here when the earth was created. And it'll be here when we're all dead and gone. When you're saving those fake dollars, this will still be here.
Yeah.
Or those fake ETFs, or those fake stocks. If you look at what happened with the fake central bank, the Japanese, the Bank of Japan, or the European Central Bank, they pump out fake money. Mm-hmm. The purpose of central banks like the Fed is to protect the banks, not you. They're a criminal operation as far as I'm concerned. Mm-hmm. You're going to find that most of my talks about the Fed. So don't save money, don't save government money, because they're corrupt as hell, as you know.
Yeah.
Save God's money.
With regard to what individuals should do, I think the logical answer is for expenses, if you have expenses in the next 3 months, you have your expenses in the local currency, which is the peso, the naira, the whatever, because it's legally obligated for you to pay in the local currency. For the next 3 years of expenses, or 1 to 3 years of expenses, you put your wealth in the strongest world currency in the world. That's the dollar right now, but you make sure that you have that currency either self-custodied or you have it in a bank that you trust.